it's like a radio. All the songs, all the magic, everything you want, all the knowledge is all out there right in front of you. The minute you tune yourself into the right frequency, that is all you get to hear. So what frequency are you tuned into is what creates that magical moments we call serendipity. Let's go.
My next guest has the quintessential Horatio Alger story of rags to riches that is going to inspire you to believe in your limitless potential. He's an Indian immigrant who came to the U.S. to work as a young man, and he just had $5 in his pocket. Today, he is a serial entrepreneur and a billionaire who has been awarded the Albert Einstein Technology Medal for pioneers in technology and many, many, many other accolades. He is also a board member of the X Prize and a vice chair of the board at Singularity University. Welcome back to This Magic Life. I am your host, Andrea Koppel, and my guest today is Naveen Jain. He has founded at least 5 mind-blowingly successful companies over the years, including InfoSpace, Intellius, Blue Dot, Moon Express, and his latest venture, Viome Life Sciences. He is truly a visionary pioneer fueled by an insatiable curiosity, incredible optimism, and an unyielding commitment to challenging the boundaries of what we believe is achievable. He is someone who has proven over and over again that you cannot predict where your career journey will lead you. And his insights and advice today is going to help students and parents alike. Naveen, welcome to This Magic Life.
Andrea, what an honor and a pleasure. And your introduction makes me blush. And you know how hard it is to get a brown person to
Oh my
blush.
goodness. Listen, I know that you spend so much of your time reimagining what is possible in the future. But I would love for us to rewind the clock just a little bit to back when you were a young boy in India, where you grew up. And I know the story, you grew up very poor. And I read that you spent much of your childhood actually having to move from city to city, and a number of the schools that you went to were really not good. They were subpar. But somehow, Naveen, you managed to get accepted to the Indian equivalent of MIT. Do you remember back maybe around that time, the first time that you experienced what we might describe as serendipity, a lucky or synchronous opportunity in your life?
Well, Andrea, our life is, every day in our life, we see these moments that we call serendipity. And the way I look at that is this is universe's way of telling you what is out there. And the many of us miss this magical time is because we are just not tuned into what we're really looking for. And the minute you start to tune into the universe, you start to see these signals. And this is amazing thing is a determined person who absolutely have a clarity of purpose, someone who knows exactly what they want out of life. They suddenly meet everyone who can help them get there. And someone who is simply wandering, trying to figure out what they want in life, they say, I never find these magical moments. The magical moments exist. We just have to tune into them. So it's like I tell a lot of people is that, remember, it's like a radio. All the songs, all the magic, everything you want, all the knowledge is all out there right in front of you. The minute you tune yourself into the right frequency, that is all you get to hear. So what frequency are you tuned into is what creates that magical moments we call serendipity. And I found that the biggest mentor, the biggest lessons that we learn in life is from our own life, right? Life is the biggest mentor. We just stop listening to it.
Well, you are singing my tune, Naveen. I love that message. Can you help us though? Because there are so many students, there are so many 20 somethings today who are afraid. And maybe, like you, they're living in poverty. It could be intellectual poverty, it could be maybe the community, the home where they live. Can you take us back to when you were their age, when you were in India, and maybe you did have a mentor, maybe you had somebody who was inspiring you, but how do you think you began to attract the serendipity that landed you at India's MIT?
There is no one moment. It is what's really interesting is everything in life is interconnected. You meet someone who may not be the person who will get you there, but through them you meet someone else, through them you meet someone else. And we have this somehow this idea that it's the last straw that breaks the camel's back. And if we are really smart, we know it's really not the last straw. It's all the other straws that came before that that actually breaks the camel's back. So we really always looking for that one single moment that changes us, the one single moment that makes everything happen. And we forget that it is a strings of connected experience that are constantly changing you. Every interaction makes you a different person if you keep your mind open. It doesn't matter who you talk to, you can learn something from them. Even if the person you may think is homeless, if you just give 5 minutes of your time, the magical lessons of life you can learn from that person will blow your mind off. That every single person has something to teach you. It's just a matter of you keeping an open mind. And when you actually lead with the purpose, not with an agenda, everything changes, because then you're asking for help for a purpose that's beyond just yourself. When you ask someone for help because you have a clarity of how you want to contribute to the universe, you will suddenly find there are so many people around you that will actually help you get there.
So, who helped you, Naveen, back when you were a teenager? And I'm guessing you didn't see necessarily a pathway to university. Who helped you?
So it's really interesting. We had no money to go to the university. So even if I was admitted, there was no chance I could actually pay for it. It so happened that we knew that somehow if I could be on the top of my class, what if I get the really good grades? What if I was willing to sacrifice all my social life to achieve that purpose? Because from day one, we realized the only path out of poverty is not to complain about poverty, but to find through education so you can actually get out of the poverty, not just for yourself, but for your whole family. And that's literally, it takes one person to go out and change the circumstances for your family, and then everyone goes out there and continues to contribute more and more towards humanity. And it was essentially, if you will laugh at it, a total tuition at that time was 30 cents a year, and I could not afford that. I mean, it was that because we just had no money. But able to now get the scholarship and not have to pay that, then suddenly changed everything for us. Like, is to be able to get into the scholarship, go to the college, and just absolutely dedicate your life to learning. And what I realized is learning is the only thing that will get out of your poverty. Learning changes how you look at the world. And if I could tell you there's one, the biggest, the rarest resource on planet Earth is the intellectually curious human beings. Because once you find these intellectually curious human beings, there is nothing that they can't achieve. There's nothing they cannot find a way to make happen. It is the curiosity of not looking at the world as is, but really looking at the world what it can be. And once you start thinking about the world can be, and that you can imagine in very clear, vivid details, you can create that world. So the only limitations to what we can achieve is what we can imagine. But imagination has to be vivid, clear, and purposeful.
So, were you manifesting getting a scholarship to go to school? Is that what you were doing?
Well, manifestation is, of course, you live that every day. And part of the things that I always have trained myself to see is I close my eyes and I start to see that life. I start to believe it's already happening for me. And I start to believe in so much that there's nothing that's going to get in my way of getting there. And that means every single person I meet, I'm going to ask for help. And that's what changes, because now you believe you're already there. You just need to find a way, a path. You just need a GPS navigation to get there, because you know exactly where you're going.
So, is this what you were doing as a young man?
As a young person, you really are lost. I mean, the fact is, we all are searching. But one thing that we never should be searching for is our purpose in life. And each one of us, there is no one purpose that each one of us can have, but there is something for us. Every one of us has something that we want to contribute to the world. And I always ask myself, what am I willing to die for? And then live for it for every second of my life. When I wake up in the morning, I want to jump out of the bed because I'm so excited about pursuing that purpose. And when you find that, you will never be lying in the bed. After you wake up, you jump out of the bed because you have so much joy. You think what you're doing is really God's work. And that is what brings you to life. And when you meet someone, you never say, "Can you help me?" You say, "I am trying to do this. Can you help us achieve this?" Because if we can succeed, the humanity will be better. There are billions of people whose life will be better if we can do that.
Well, I want to thank you for helping me to spread this message, because this is my purpose in life. I want to just finish one point in your life and then move forward. You did get your BS in engineering technology and industrial engineering at India's equivalent of MIT, and you got your MBA in India. And then you got a job to come to the US, and the story goes you had $5 in your pocket. Is that true?
Yeah. So I think that is really magical story of how universe aligns itself to make your dreams come true. I had absolutely no desire to come to United States. I did not even apply to be there. In fact, when I was doing my MBA, I did my engineering and industrial engineering, and I was doing my MBA, which was personnel management and union management. I have nothing to do with any of the stuff that I end up doing in my life. And here there was a company, a computer company called Burroughs, that came to the campus, and they were looking for programmers. And there were a bunch of people who applied for the job, and they will give you the aptitude test, like SAT test, to see if these people actually qualify for the job. And obviously the people who were engineers and computer scientists and everyone who actually was doing a real MBA in marketing and stuff all applied for a job. And I was sitting at lunch and talking to some of my friends, and he said, they told me this is the hardest test they have ever taken. And I'm like, seriously, how hard can it be? And the guy across me says, obviously you must not have taken the test to talk like that. And it's like, oh my God, really? Is that bad? I'm going to go do the test. And I literally did it just for the challenge of it. I did the test, and I absolutely aced it. And next day morning, I get a call saying, we want to interview for a job of a computer program. I'm just like, what is a computer? And now,
did you really say that? You said, what is a computer?
I never seen it in my life. I've never seen a computer in my life. Forget about programming it. I've never seen a computer. I said, what's a computer? and they think I am just playing with them because I had such a high score. They thought I would obviously know what it is. And now they say, oh, they're going to play along. And they say, well, do you know the difference between a bit and a byte? I say, even a moron knows that bit is small and a byte is big. And now they're thinking, of course, I know everything. And honest to God, I'm just thinking, bit, byte. Right? And now this great. We're going to, if you don't know programming, that's totally fine. We're going to train you. We're going to teach you. We're going to hire you. You're going to come to New Jersey, and we're going to. It's like, sure. And that's literally how I ended up in New Jersey.
Oh my God, what an incredible story. So you land in New Jersey to learn how to be a computer programmer. So how did you go from January of 83 to June 1989 when you began working at Microsoft, basically as,
Long story, whole
yes,
bunch of
okay,
story. I
go
mean,
ahead.
whole bunch of things happen in between. So I ended up in New Jersey, and now I'm living because obviously they were paying you so little. So it was since they brought you to train, they call that an internship. As a part of internship, I was making $500 a month. Think about that for a second. $500 a month. Six of us were living in one single small house. We could not afford a car. Six of us together bought I think must have been a 60s Impala old car that six of us, I think we bought it for like $300 or something, and six of us shared that car. And it was, we came to New Jersey and we lived in this farmhouse that, in that time since we came, actually it was June, now that I remember, it was June of 83, it was summer days, and we actually found this farmhouse, and I thought, oh my God, what a great life here. The streams and so much land, this is unbelievable. And little that I know that come, late fall, there was white stuff falling from the sky, and I'm looking down because I've never seen a snow in my life. I'm like jumping with joy. What a God! What, look, this country, the white stuff falls from the sky instead of water. What a great country! And now the next day there is 6 inch of snow, and I don't have warm clothes, and that there is no insulation in the house. There is this much gap between the door because this was supposed to be a farmhouse for summer, and we now freezing to that. And I only had one pair of leather shoes that got holes in the leather shoe by walking in snow. And I realized by the end of the year this was not a place for me. And this really amazing thing happened. So I sent an email to my manager and said, look, I'm going to go back to India. This is really not the place for me. I really enjoyed working with you, and I would like you to come when you come to India sometime. Come visit me, and you'll always have a home. And the guy replies back and say, no, 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 you are such a brilliant person. You don't need to go back. You really belong in this country, and where you belong is a Silicon Valley, because Silicon Valley is where all the smart people go. And you should go to Silicon Valley, and that's where all the magic is going to happen. I'm going to make few calls, and I'm going to get you some interviews set up. And next thing, I was now working for one of the top company in the Silicon Valley. And now I'm starting to learn. I'm thinking, oh my God, I will never be a best computer programmer because I just don't have any basic knowledge. I learned everything myself and I started to do the work, but I realized I will never be best at it. And then I thought maybe I could do sales, maybe I could do marketing. And who wants to hear from a guy who can barely speak English, right? Anyway, got the job there, worked there for 6 years, and now I'm really going from job to the things. And I was actually at that point managing the software group because I realized I can manage because I couldn't program myself. I can easily manage programmers, right? So it's easy to do. And then it was now 1988. So 1988, we just September of 98, we got married. And then by the time my wife graduated from her MBA at Rutgers, then she moved to California. And she said, and I think it's around, spring time frame, June time frame, she says, we should really visit Pacific Northwest. It's such a beautiful place. And I thought, God, we really, now we had a little bit of money, but not a lot of money to waste on vacation. So I realized that if I were to fax my resume to Microsoft, I'll probably get a job and they'll call me for an interview. And that's really is, I faxed my resume, got a call, ended up getting an interview from Microsoft, and ended up getting a job at Microsoft. It was so beautiful at that time of the year here in summer. And I think now it's been, God knows, we came here in 89. So now it's been 35 years and I'm still in Seattle.
Isn't that incredible? And you shared with me the whole story before we started the interview. I can just share with our audience the fact that Naveen said, we're not really sure if we'll like the weather because it's so different from where we're living now. So we should stay there a week. So he got himself a week's free vacation to the Pacific Northwest. He wasn't looking for a job, and he actually didn't want to work at Microsoft and almost didn't work there. And they thought he was trying to negotiate with them, and they ended up doubling the offer. So he ended up saying it was an offer he couldn't refuse. This is how he ended up at Microsoft. And you worked there for almost 7 years, Naveen. Why did you decide to leave? And were you afraid at all about taking the leap to go out on your own? Because that's what you did next.
Yes, I think, Andrea, as you can imagine, that at any point of time in life, it is such a risk when you go on your own. But for me, it just didn't feel like a risk. In fact, my wife was just so afraid. And I remember, 7 years I've been at Microsoft, internet was just starting out. And in those days, there were only 5 or 6 companies on the internet. Amazon had just launched at that time, and Yahoo and Lycos and InfoSeek, and there were like 5 or 6 players. And I'm thinking, my God, this is going to be something totally new, totally big. And I wanted to go out and actually build something that will be something pioneering, that will be so new, that because something was new and something magical could happen here. And one fine day, I resigned and I came home and I told my sweet wife that I am leaving. I left Microsoft, and she looks at me and says, "What do you mean by leaving?" And I said, "I no longer get a paycheck. I just resigned." And she said, "You are one of the worst husband, worst father. You know I am pregnant with that child. How can we possibly afford to now have you not work? And what are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to start a company." And I said, "Well, you know nothing about starting a company. You need to go back and apologize to them. You don't mean to resign. You call them and let them know that you want your job back, and you need to just go back and do that." And I say, what if we actually give it a shot? What if we actually just give me 6 months and see if I can do something? And if I can, I'll go get a job.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible. And it was a creative solution to your problem with your wife. So where did the kernel of the idea to start InfoSpace, because that's the name of your company, come from? And what made you think, Naveen, that you would be able to turn this idea into a successful company?
And no one does, honestly. So we started and kept thinking about are the kind of things that people have problems with. So anytime you start something, you never start with, "This is what I want to do." And I think this is where most entrepreneurs go wrong. And as we go, I'll give you my thesis about how we actually build companies. But the fundamental thing is, most people say, "This is what I want to do." I start with, what problem are we trying to solve? What is it that world is missing? And if you can build that, they would want that product. So you start with solving the problem rather than say, "This is what I want to do." So it's not about your skills, it's not about what you know, it's about the problems you're going to be solving. And now maybe, and I'm going to digress here, and we can come back to InfoSpace later. There are really fun stories of how I met actually a wonderful girl that I was sitting on a plane with, and that changed the business of what we were doing at InfoSpace and launched InfoSpace into a completely different world because I ended up chatting with her, right? And
so wait, I just want to be clear. You met a woman on a plane, and she ended up
helping.
inspiring you to change the idea of what your company would be.
Well, it actually helped launch. So basically, we decided that at InfoSpace that early days, my philosophy was that you probably are too young to remember. There was no way for somebody to find someone's phone number at that time. The only way you could do is you dial the area code 555 1212. Right. So if I want to find someone in Chicago, I would dial 312 555 1212, and they say, "What city, please?" And I said, "I don't know what city is. I'm sorry, we can't help you." Right. So you have to know the city, you have to know the name, and then they can look up the phone number and tell you. I'm thinking, this is stupid. You used to have these white pages and yellow pages. Remember those big, thick books?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So in white, yellow page, you'll find the stuff that your business is. In white page, you'll find people's phone number alphabetically listed there. So we thought, God, if we can take all the nationwide, every single white pages, every single yellow pages, you put them together and make them available on the internet, you can find any phone number and you don't have to know anything. Just put a name, last name, first name, whatever you know, and we say, here are the people. And you should be able to go find anyone at any time. And that could be a big service, like essentially a telephone switchboard, right? And that is how InfoSpace came to be. And that's as we were doing it, and I thought this was a good business, and we launched that business, and now we were adding the more and more services like classifieds and other stuff. And I realized that there should be these services make so much sense to be on phone, because every time you need a phone, you need a phone number, and you have to either have it on your contact or you have to actually write it down somewhere. What if there was a phone number available that you could now launch the service? So I kept thinking that one day there has to be a phone that would do all this magic. Now, and so we start building the services for these phones, except there was no phones out there.
By phones, do you mean cell
The cell phones,
phones,
cell phones.
smartphones?
Yeah, cell phones.
Okay, so you were seeing this as a need on the horizon and you were already building the
Yeah.
product.
And there was no smartphones in those days. The best phones used to be those Motorola flip phones, right? Those were the fancy Star Trek phones, right? So those were, too young. You probably don't remember all that.
No, oh my goodness, Naveen, you're flattering me, but I do remember, and I remember trying to hold those phones, which weighed like 5 pounds.
So there used to be big phones, and then there were small, tiny the flip phones that you could actually hold, right? So those flip phones, and we were building these. Now we were thinking that one day this is going to happen. So much so, I remember in 2000, I am with Leslie Walker at Washington Post. And there's an interview you can still find if you type Washington Post, Leslie Walker, Naveen Jain. And I said, Leslie, one day we're going to have a phone where you'll be able to get your email, your contact, you'll be able to get your weather, you'll be able to get your stock code. And when you drive by Starbucks, it will know your location. It'll give you a coupon for Starbucks. And we will use our phones to make the payment instead of using the credit card. She looks at me and she says, sir, I don't know what you're talking about. Not in our lifetime. And I remember actually calling her when iPhones came out. I said, I hope you're alive. It's happening. It's happening. Right.
Oh my gosh, that is an amazing story.
So this, interestingly, it all came about, this whole phone the idea. I knew it was happening. I was traveling from San Jose to Seattle on a flight back. And there was this wonderful woman sitting next to me. And I said, what do you do? And she says, I work at AT&T. And I said, what do you do at AT&T? And she said, I can't tell you. I'm working on something confidential. I said, I didn't even ask you for your name. You don't know me. I don't know you. You can tell me anything you want. I don't really care. And she said, well, we're working on a phone that's going to be able to dial into the internet, get a bit of information, and display it on the phone. And I'm thinking, really? You know what the first thing people would want? Phone numbers. She said, that's really interesting. You're right. People want phone number for a business or a person. Do you have it? I said, of course I do. So she went back and she calls me next day. He said, my boss actually really likes the idea, but there is a problem. I said, what's the problem? He said, well, we are a phone company. If we gave the phone numbers, people think that we are violating their privacy. So the only way we would ever do that, you have to put your logo on the phone. You have to put your logo on the box and let people know for sure that it is coming from you, not from us. I said, twist my arm. You can put my logo everywhere you want. And honest to God, when the phone came out, that had a logo on the phone, InfoSpace logo on the phone, InfoSpace logo on the box, because AT&T didn't want anything to do with that. And suddenly we became the brand.
That is the most incredible story of serendipity, Naveen.
Yeah, yeah,
And it shows that you should always, and I'm not joking here, you should always talk to the people who
yeah.
are around you.
Mhm.
In an article that you wrote a number of years ago, I read about some of the qualities that you believe are the most important to be a successful entrepreneur. And one of them was to learn to trust your gut over spreadsheets.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
Well, first of all, Andre, I'm going to continue expanding. Look, the way you and I met was as much of a serendipity as one can have. We were just at an event, and the chances of us meeting are slim to none. Right? It's a thousands of people at the event, and of all the things in life, I was talking about parenting, right? And you came to me and said, that is just an amazing way how you look at life and parenting, and I want to talk to you. And then we ended up talking about you and your dad and the parenting. And I thought that was just an unbelievable connection. How you and I connected was through a topic that neither one of us normally would have been talking about, right? And
Yes.
to me, yeah, this is what to me is that magical moments happen when you are not actually looking for them, when you meet people and when you talk to them without having an agenda. And I think that is, if one lesson is that when you meet people, you need to be your authentic yourself. You need to be sincere. You When you speak to people, you do not simply look at their badge and saying, oh, that person can help me or this person cannot help me. Because when you do that, you miss out on all that moments, because someone you may think has nothing to do with what you're trying to get done, and that person may have been just the right person, knows someone who actually would have helped you, right? Because you were never connecting. And I think, Andrea, there's never a time I find these magical moments in people and meeting people that I never thought who they were. The problem that happens is when you meet someone, you're always thinking, what can this person do for you? Instead, you simply ask yourself, what can I do to help this person? That's all. And if you keep focusing on that, what can I do to help this person be better? Intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, or just simply be a friend and just listen to them. And that
Yes.
alone builds these amazing friendships and relationships that go for a long, long time.
I love that story. And I would say the other piece that I see very much in you is just being curious. Just being curious about the person who's sitting next to you on the plane or the person who comes up to you to talk to you when you're at an event, and just lead with curiosity and you'll be surprised by what follows. I want to ask you very much about parenting because you have three beautiful children. But before I do, I just want to go back to that other question I asked because I really think this is an important point about when you said learn to trust your gut over spreadsheets, because I'm sure there are people who are watching right now or listening who want Naveen Jain's advice on becoming a successful entrepreneur. And what does it mean to trust your gut when the numbers are maybe saying something else?
Very interesting. So, first thing is, your gut instinct are already know how you feel about that problem, whatever the thing is that you're trying to do or not do. You actually have a faint idea, the intuition that tells you, hey, is it going to work or not? Interesting thing about spreadsheets are there's so many assumptions that we have to make in spreadsheet, because not everything in the future is known, so you make assumptions. If you believe something is going to work, you end up making the assumptions which are better, and spreadsheet tells you exactly the assumptions you made, right? So if you think something is not going to work, you make very, very pessimistic assumptions. What does the spreadsheet tell you? This is not going to work. So my point is, you already know is going to work or not, and when you put a spreadsheet together, it simply reflects that. And most of the time people say, oh, a spreadsheet doesn't work. All they're telling you is, I don't believe it works. And a lot of the people do that simply to actually either not listening to their intuition, or they're simply using their head more than their gut. So what I do in almost every situation where I have to make a decision, I close my eyes and I just listen to myself. How am I feeling? I have just signed this deal. How do I feel? Year has gone by. 2 years have gone by. How am I feeling? Is this working for me? Is this something I feel good about? Is this something I just don't feel good about? And I walk away if I don't feel good. If I feel good, I just move forward. Right. So that is the part of the thing, is that our brain tends to, look at the facts. The only thing the brain can do is to simply look at the facts and calculate what it knows. Everything else that we don't know is really our assumptions that we are making.
You mentioned
Yeah.
our meeting
Yes.
at the biohacking conference.
Yeah.
And I came up to you because I was so touched by what you had said in terms of the advice that you
Yeah.
gave your children
Yes.
when they were thinking about, okay, what am I going to do with my life? Can you share that in terms of how young people should approach becoming successful in life, whatever that definition means to them?
So the success is never measured by the amount of money you have in the bank. Success is truly measured by how many lives can you improve. So when I start any company, any business, I ask myself three questions. Why this? Why now? Why me? Why this is a very simple thing. You say, God forbid I'm actually successful in solving the problem that I set out to solve. Would it help a billion people live a better life? Because to me, anytime you can build any product, any service that helps a billion people live a better life, you can create $100 billion company. But you never wake up in the morning and saying, what should I do to create $100 billion company? Making money is simply a byproduct of doing things that improve people's life, right? That means every day you ask yourself, what can I do to improve people's life? Not what can I do to make more money. Making money will always be a byproduct, right? And young people who are listening to it probably have a difficult time understanding. So let me tell you in a way that may sound really, really terrible. So close your eyes, close your ears, Andrea. Making money is
Okay.
like making money is like having an orgasm. It's it's not, if you focus on it, you're never going to get it. You just have to enjoy the process, right? So to me, you never focus on making money. It will come because you're doing the things that make other people's life better.
Beautiful. You've also said that the life of an entrepreneur is like a heartbeat, and a heartbeat goes up and down. And that's a good thing because it means that we're alive. But when we're an entrepreneur, we may want it to be easy, but that means it's flatline. That means you're dead. So, how should our young viewers approach the downs of the heartbeat, and how can they embrace them?
Yes. And again, I think Andrew just pointed out the heartbeat is up and down, up and down. When it's flat, you're dead. So to me, being alive is embracing both ups and downs. When you're down, all you do is hunker down, know the next beat is going to be up. And when you're on top of that beat, never to become too arrogant, because you always should remember the winter is coming and winter shall come, right? But more importantly, you have to believe the universe is your friend. Everything that is happening is for your benefit. And once you believe that everything that happens to your benefit, even the things that you believe today are really, really bad, that maybe actually is what will turn out to be in 10 years from now the best thing that ever happened to you. How many times young people, they have a breakup with some girlfriend or boyfriend, and they think that was the worst thing that ever happened. A decade later, they meet someone absolutely wonderful, say, oh my God, what a nightmare I avoided, right? So I mean, every single culture has these stories about, how when something looked bad, it was really, really good. And I think, I don't know, obviously the Chinese culture has a story about the horse, right? And the Indian culture actually is a really interesting story about a king and his advisor. They're going out on a hunting trip, and the king falls down and breaks his arm, and his advisor says, "Oh, so that happened. I see, really good." And his king is so angry. He says, "I just broke my arm, and you're telling me if that happened, that's really good?" And he takes his advisor, puts them in the dungeon, puts them in a jail, and he says, "You are just going to stay right here." And the next week they go out, he goes out hunting by himself. And now he's hunting and he gets caught by this tribe. And this tribe takes him there. They don't know who he is, and they're going to sacrifice him. And they get him ready for sacrifice, and they're putting him in front of the priest. And he's now getting ready to be sacrificed. Priest says, "We have to let him go." Why? We don't sacrifice a broken man in front of God. His hand is broken. We never satisfy. We need to only can sacrifice a man who is not broken. He goes home, thanks his advisor, takes him out of the dungeon, and says, "Thank you for saving my life. You were right. It's the best thing that ever happened." And he said, "Don't thank me. I want to thank you for putting me in this dungeon." He said, "How so?" He said, "If I was with you, they would have sacrificed me."
Oh, I love that. It's about optimism.
It's about believing that every single thing that's happening in the universe, it is for your benefit. And you have to believe universe, call that God, is your friend. You embrace everything that happens. You don't say it is good or bad, because we don't know it's good or bad until later. So even the event that looks bad, like a broken hand, turned out to be really good event. Going into the dungeon may turn out to, you think is a bad event, may turn out to be the event that saved your life, right? So everything you just have to believe is happening. So you just simply say, it's not good or bad. It is what it is, and it will be what will be. And you learn to live. And see, there are only two types of problems in this world: things that we have a control over, and the things we don't have a control over. And if you don't have a control over something, you simply say, "Universe, it is what it is, and it will be what will be, and I'm okay with that." And things that you have a control over, you do absolutely the best you possibly can. And then you look at the universe, say, "It is what it is, and it's going to be what's going to be, and I'm okay with that."
Naveen, I just have two very quick questions that I try to ask all my guests. The first one is, what can our audience do right now to become more magical, to experience more serendipity in their lives?
Well, first of all, my answer is dream so big that people think you're absolutely crazy, and never stop believing in yourself, and never believe you ever going to fail, because you only fail when you give up. Every other thing that you think your goal have not been achieved, they're simply a stepping stone to a bigger goal and maybe even bigger dreams.
Beautiful. Looking back on your career journey thus far, because I know there's a lot more exciting developments on the horizon for you, what do you think has been the secret to the magic that you've attracted and experienced in your life?
Just being authentic myself, never really trying to be someone else, never trying to impress someone, because the only person you want to impress is yourself. Because the day you fall in love with yourself is the day the world will fall in love with you. So the minute you actually just find that deep love for yourself, the happiness that sits inside you, rather than believing that someone or something is going to make you happy, if you can just get that, that'll make you happy. Remember, you could have everything in life and still be miserable. But if you find the happiness inside you, you could be sitting in a dark corner and still have that happiness. No one can take that away from you. So just know that happiness will always be an inside job, and it comes from inside you. And there's nothing externally that will make you happy or unhappy. Or even when we say, "You make me angry," no one can ever make you angry. Only you have the power to make yourself angry. They can simply trigger you, but it's up to you how you respond to it. So don't blame someone else when you're angry. You should be, because you control when you're angry and you're not.
Naveen, I'm so grateful to the universe that I was able to bump into you at the biohacking conference. You are such a joy and such a wonderful mentor to all of us. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. And I want to wish you many, many more magical moments to come.
Andrea, you're such a gracious and an amazingly kind human being. Anyone who's listening to it, please know this soul has so much to give. And if you're listening to it, please drop a line to her and let her know how much it means to you to be listening to this podcast and everything else she does. My hat's off to you, Andrea. Let's go.
Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of This Magic Life. Our mission is to inspire you to stop fearing your future and start getting excited about all the serendipitous and magical opportunities that await you. Make sure to subscribe to This Magic Life on YouTube so you don't miss any new episodes. And for on-the-go listening, give us a follow wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. We absolutely love to get feedback from the This Magic Life community, so make sure to drop us a comment on YouTube or a 5-star review on Apple. And you can always find me on LinkedIn at Andrea Koppel, aka the Career Magic Maker. I can't wait to see you soon.